I snatch up the book greedily, put it in my cloak. Well, what are we gonna do now, Black Durban? How are we gonna get out of here?
Well, that's a good question. I think we're going to need bigger guns.
Well, we gave all our guns to the doorman.
I don't mean guns like that. Tell me, does this town have any artillery? Cannons?
There are a few things left over from the war. One or two. I can't see how cannons would help against some mythical nightmare beast.
Listen, I've fought creatures that would terrify you, things you can't imagine. If you've got big enough bullets, you can shoot a giant. But we need to be prepared. My bet is this thing, if it's crossed with humans the way that the book says, can probably be taken down without any kind of strange reagents or anything like that. I don't think this is about bringing silver or runes or anything. I think this is just about big guns and fire.
I have an idea. We're gonna need artillery, fire, and pigs.
I like the way you think.
Follow me.
All right. As you head out the door and into the governor's house, the governor sees behind you the crumbled pile of dust that used to be Thomas Lovegill. He makes to stop you, and then Durban just shoves his hand out and throws the governor aside, who vaults over the table and hits the wall, turns around and says,
Quiet, fool, you must be complicit in this or else it wouldn't be happening. Now, if I had more time, I'd have an inquisition and probably end up burning half the village. But as it is, I've got a giant to kill.
And he walks out with you.
We snatch the weapons off the doorman, run into town, and start preparing. Later on, we get back to my dwelling. I check up on Abby while Black Durban prepares a cart. Is she okay?
No, actually. She looks like she's in some kind of trance. Almost hypnotized.
Okay, so the room is dark. I light the lantern and hold it up. I see her standing in the center of the room, staring off at the wall.
Father, you cannot stop him. Yar Sagoi is greater than the greatest of men.
What are you saying, Abby?
She turns around and you can see that the pupils of her eyes are dilating wildly in and out, transfixed, and you think you can see stars dancing.
No. Abby, what have you done?
She seems to wake up.
Father, I think I was dreaming again. The giant was chasing me through the forest, and I don't know what's going on. These last few days are a blur.
I stare darkly out the window, and then sometime later I catch up to Black Durban. He has spent some time fixing up one of the old pieces of artillery that we found strewn somewhere outside the town, with our torches and several of my healthiest swine and a length of rope. We venture off into the forest as Abby lies tied down to the bed.
Yeah, you lead the cart kind of quietly As you approach the border of the forest, you see ahead of you a gathering of townsfolk with torches. Maybe 10 of them, standing at the edge of the forest, intercepting you on your path. As you reach the throng, you see that at the head of them is the town mayor, Moses Hooper.
Now listen, see. What do you think you're doing here? You come into my house. You kill my prisoner. And now you make into the forest against all the customs of our people to do what? Kill a giant? What are you doing, Durban? Pigman? What's your game here?
I look to Durban and raise an eyebrow. Then I reach into my cloak, fingering the flintlock which Durban lent me just moments earlier.
Pigman, he whispers.
There are too many of them. I could come out of this alive, but I can't guarantee your safety. It's best we talk them down.
I nod my head slightly and then turn to the mayor. Lord, this is beyond your comprehension. There is an evil in that forest. We are planning to face it, and it is likely that we will never return.
Stepping forward from behind the governor is the old woman who was taking care of the priest. The old woman who tied him to the bed and restrained him as he went mad. Leanne.
You don't know what you're playing with here.
And you do, you old bitch.
We've been here for generations, and I've lived at peace with that thing in the forest. It's older than me, it's older than you, it's older than my great-great-grandmother. And for thousands of years, perhaps longer, the people of Godswood have kept peace, have kept to their ways. Wasn't until that dumb Puritan priest come here, upsetting it by breaking custom. We need to go back to the old ways. If we go in there with fire and guns and try to kill it, there won't be no village here tomorrow, do you understand? There won't be no town. I'm sorry, but we have to stop ye.
You mentioned, old lady, you mentioned the old ways.
Yes. Where do you think the bodies went? God, Pigman, you never even inquired after the body of your own wife. Didn't even know where they buried her. You were drunk the day of the funeral. Didn't turn up. But I thought you would have at least inquired as to where she went.
I take out my flintlock and shoot her in the head.
Truly?
Yeah.
Well, you do. I won't make you roll for it. You draw your pistol, point it at her. Durban quickly puts his hand on your gun and says, "Are you sure?"
Sure you want to do this?
I pull the trigger.
That's a yes then.
The gun kicks, and in a second, Leanne is lied slumped on the ground with blood pooling around her. And Durban draws both of his swords and looks at the group.
Now I'm willing to bet that me against 20 of you would be a pretty fair fight. I think you could kill me. But how many of you can I kill before you do? That's the game I'm interested in playing. So as I see it, you can go home right now. Or 3 or 4 of you might get to go home later. That's anyone's guess.
You're just sort of shaking uncontrollably. You've never killed a person before.
Well, that was sort of a moment of rage, and now that moment has passed, and I'm looking down at her, and after all that's happened today, I vomit violently on the ground, but keep an eye on the villagers with their pitchforks and torches, and keep my flintlock at the ready. Then I stand back up, feeling the rush, the murderous rush. I hold my pistol up to the group. You heard the man! Be gone!
The governor lifts up the palm of his hand, produces a knife from his pocket, and slashes his own hand so the blood runs down his arm. And he holds it up toward you and toward the forest and says,
Let this be a sign, Yar Sagoy, keeper of the woods.
I shoot him.
and as the gun goes off, Durban sort of face palms and says,
Well, fair enough then.
and he runs at the group. Alright, let's do combat.
Okay.
Alright, I'll say you kill the mayor in a shot. I won't make you roll that one out. But you've got to deal with about 18 angry peasants now. There's a mix of men and women, some of them young, some of them old. Not all of them are capable fighters. But what's your method here?
I run to my horse, jump on its back. Durban, throw me a sword.
He throws you up one of his swords.
I take it, slash the ropes, securing it to the cart, and prance into the center of the group, swinging my sword wildly, less trying to kill anyone and more trying to scare them off. I know if I can just do a bit of damage, then...
Yeah, it's dark, and these are mostly sort of young and excitable people. I don't think they really wanted to fight you. I think they wanted to sort of let you go and do your thing and wash their hands of it all. Can you give me an intimidate?
Good idea. 60.
Well, no, that won't do it. But you do manage to do a bit of damage, nonetheless. So as the horse rears and bucks, kicks at a few people, and you see one man have his jaw broken by the rear hoof of a horse. Durban runs in, swinging his sword and drawing guns, firing them off and dropping them with each shot with excessive rapidity. He puts down about 4 peasants in the time you manage to get your horse into the fray. And you are screaming wildly. Someone jabs a pitchfork at you though. And they get you good.
Was it a 4?
It was a 7, which is still a crit. So I'm going to say that you, Mr. Pigman, have about 10 HP.
Yeah.
So let's I'm going to give, for the crit, I'm going to give it 4 bonus damage, and we're going to roll a d6. You take a heavy hit. As a pitchfork drives you from your horse, sending you crumpled onto the ground. You've taken 7 damage, which is enough to knock you unconscious.
Am I unconscious?
Well, you can roll a constitution. I'll say your constitution is about 70.
8.
Yeah, you remain conscious.
With a sort of bout of enraged energy, I cleave the head clean off this villager who has
Give me a brawl.
poked me with his
Give me a brawl.
21.
Yeah, I'll let you do it. Yeah, you swiftly swing around, and wild-eyed and mad, you and Durban together strike enough of a terrifying image that the remaining peasants flee away back to town.
As the peasants flee, I go to Durban. Sir, you've shown me much today. I'm wounded now. I don't know how long I have. The plan we discussed earlier.
Seems kind of dumb in retrospect.
Well, I'll take the pigs. You set up the cannon, as we discussed. It's okay if I die now. But, Durban, the girl, I fear she has become corrupted.
Perhaps, but it could be that this creature has some kind of hold of women. It would seem to be that way from the text. Perhaps when it's killed, she'll be loosed from its spell.
If it's killed. If it looks like we aren't strong enough to take it down, promise me, Durban, you will run back to my girl. You'll try to save her.
I'll take her with me if I have to. She might not like it. She might not believe me.
Whatever you do, keep that bloody creature inside that box.
Don't worry. I don't think she's Salty Philip's type.
And Black Durban leads you into the forest. He seems strangely watchful. You look around and you can see these faint marshlight glowing little twills and twinkles off in the rows of trees. And like will-o'-the-wisps, you're not sure what they are at first, but Black Durban looks concerned about them.
At some point in the forest, the trees become thick and it's difficult to pull the cart through. So we move slower and slower. I've noticed the lights. I've noticed strange sounds, smells, but I put them out of my mind. The adrenaline kick is starting to wear off now, and I know I've only got, a limited amount of time before I'm unconscious. We trudge through until we find a small clearing. I hastily untie the swine and then set them grazing in the center of the clearing.
At the center of the clearing is a large stone table. And you notice as you pace it that there are bones strewn everywhere. Human bones and pig bones mixed together in piles. You see one of these will-o'-the-wisp type lights flickering oddly close, and Durban puts his hand across your chest.
Stop, right there. These are dangerous.
As it gets closer, you see that this apparition is the ghostly spectre of a corpse. It looks not so much decayed as chewed. Bits of it seem missing, and it moves in a way that could only really be described as glitchy, jerking in sudden motions, teleporting 6 feet at a time and then back again, flickering in and out of existence. It seems incredibly agonized and pained. When it lays its hands upon one of your pigs, the pig immediately convulses, as though it's seizing, and the lights flash around it as it quickly blinks in and out very quickly, and the pig suddenly goes still, dead.
As the blood seeps out of this gaping wound in my side, I'm finding it hard to stand, hard to see. Not sure if I'm hallucinating. I see this apparition. After all I've seen today, doesn't seem that strange.
I think I know what they're doing with the dead. These are half-lights. The ghosts of those who die and are cannibalized, eaten. Their souls are partially consumed with their bodies, and what remains is neither human nor a ghost. It's something in the middle. Be careful around them.
Lucy. Lucy, I call out into the forest. Lucy.
He puts his hand over your mouth.
Are you mad, man? Suppose our spectre is here. It wouldn't be her. Just an awful memory. You don't want that thing coming near you.
Okay. Let's fall back.
As you step back, you smell something very strong hit your nostrils in a wave. It smells like burnt hair and ozone, like the smell of a lightning strike. But the smell comes with a feeling, and you experience synesthesia as this wall of sensory experience hits you. It's like colors are dancing before your eyes, and sounds are playing, and strange musics all transmitted through your nose. It's incredibly bizarre. Then you turn and see that Durban is completely still, like he's gone completely rigid, like he's ready to pounce.
I think it's coming. You don't have to be a witch finder to smell that.
I scramble towards the artillery we've set up a few yards away, a little hollow, and then peer out over a log at the clearing in anticipation, holding my nose with one hand and holding my side with the other as my vision grows blurry.
You hear cracking wood and see in the dim moonlight treetops swaying and collapsing as one by one the different trees ahead move. You can see it going closer and closer and closer. You can't see the figure of this humongous giant yet, and you can hear it and see its movement in the treetops. You know that it's just about to break through, and then suddenly you see this terrible hand reach out from the trees, followed by a terrible arm and a terrible body. It's not as big as you might have imagined. I think, you may have been thinking of a 40-foot tall monster. It's maybe 3 to 4 times the size of an ordinary human. About, 18 feet tall to 25 feet, somewhere in that range. Hard to guess, because the form itself is so alien, so geometrically unsettling, that to get any kind of accurate assessment of its size is almost impossible. The upper body is mostly human, other than the multiple rows of teeth and the strange horn-like protrusions from its face. The torso resembles that of a man's, but the legs are something altogether different, swirling with different colors and strange vegetable symmetries. Eyes blink around its kneecaps, or what might have been kneecaps, and tentacles protrude from its hips, forming a sort of skirt of strange pseudopods, which ebb and flow like waves and currents.
As it reaches down to my prized swine, I, as quietly as I can manage, in my state of delirium, position a cannon in its direction.
Picks up a pig with effortless ease, and as he lifts it up to his mouth, you see, as he lifts it from the ground and up toward his mouth, hundreds of smaller mouths on his body shoot out at the end of tentacles, like the mouth of a moray eel which projects from its outer mouth and then bites. Smaller mouths on stalks of flesh shoot out from all along its torso and start tearing shreds off it like piranhas, so that by the time it reaches his head, half of it's already been eaten. And then in a single bite, his jaw distends like a anaconda's, and you see 2 or 3 or 4, you're completely confused, rows of teeth, which seem to be moving in concentric circles. His rows of teeth seem to be moving like orbits around his mouth, almost like the blades of a chainsaw. And as he places the pig in his mouth, it's torn to shreds and ribbons, and you see him swallow it.
I fire the cannon.
You fire the cannon, and the thud that booms out of it is so loud, you realize that you forgot to cover your ears or anything like that. It almost deafens you. And in the ringing aftermath of the blast, as the smoke clears, you see lying in the middle of the clearing is this humongous Nephilim, lying on the ground, writhing and wriggling. It's hard to see from here what kind of damage you've done, but the creature is still moving.
I look over to Black Durban. What's he doing?
He looks perplexed. He gestures to you to load another cannonball.
I load one in.
Now you have enough gunpowder for maybe 3 shots total.
I aim it again, this time covering my ears.
As you fire off the second shot, again, this huge boom rings forth. This time you're kind of prepared for it, and as the smoke clears, you see that the tremendous figure of the Nephilim has gone still. You've hit it again. It's hard to say where. You're going to need to go up and examine it. But before you walk over, Durban loads a third shot, the final shot with gunpowder.
Trudge over to it and pull out my brand new knife, which I bought earlier. Getting closer, the smell is overwhelming. I cover my nose. The blood is pouring out of me. And
It's a hideous smell.
Yeah. I've probably lost even more hit points. So I go towards it and see it crumpled form.
As you look down on it, you can see that your first cannonball has completely crushed in its face. You must have hit it square in the middle of the head. And what's left there is like a watermelon that's been dropped from a 6-story building. You know, it's just this red, pulpy mess, streaked through with all these weird, bright colors and protrusions and fragments of bone. The second shot has blasted through its chest cavity, leaving a hole that you could, stick your arm through, going in one side and coming out the other. But as you examine this and even lean over, one of those mouths on the end of a protrusive stalk of flesh lashes out and bites a hold of your chest and grabs on. It doesn't rip the flesh, it just grabs. And then another mouth opens up on its stomach.
Durban!
I can fire now if you need, but you're in the middle of the arc of the shot. I could hit you.
I quickly...
Can you cut the tentacle loose?
I sever the tentacles.
Can you give me a check?
20.
Yeah, you manage to sever the tentacle and you fly backwards a couple of feet, and the mouth speaks.
Who dare start a fit and triumph over your sagority unkillable?
Alfie. Pigman.
Fire! Durban, fire!
Just as the mouth starts pronouncing its absolute immortality.
Jan Sagoi the Unkillable has not died for 1,000 generations of man.
A cannonball rips across the clearing and explodes in the beast, blowing it into two pieces as it tears down the middle of its body, crisscrossing with the other cannonball wounds, leaving utterly destroyed. You're showered with horrible gore, which is overwhelmingly pungent and ichorous. But you think it's probably dead.
Over the next few minutes, Durban and I gather firewood from around the forest, construct a pyre.
Well, you begin to do that. You have the impulse to burn it. But before you can do that, these strange white-like apparitions start descending upon the clearing, glitching in and out of existence, sort of juddering in staccato freeze frames, moving in sort of, like a strobe light way, constantly closer to you with every blink.
I step back to the edge of the clearing.
You see them coming from all directions. There are hundreds of them, converging upon the body.
I look behind me and I see them coming. Durban and I sort of step towards each other. Do they seem to be noticing us, or are they...
They're converging upon the body of the Nephilim, and you can see they're picking up pieces and chunks of the flesh that's scattered, around the clearing and eating it, devouring it. And as they do, you can see them regaining pieces of themselves, but becoming maybe, no less horrible in their aspect for doing that.
Durban, what have we done? What is this?
These creatures are regaining their strength. I fear that they might become ghouls if we don't leave here soon. Our best recourse is perhaps to torch the forest.
Then it shall be done.
Yes. Tar or something flammable. What do we have with us?
Coal.
As you look over the coal, you think you've probably got enough to, start a tree burning. But that's a slow thing to do. You notice across the clearing a figure who resembles Lucy. A hideous and deformed aspect, but you think it is your deceased wife.
Durban, I'm seeing visions. I see Lucy, my old wife. She's horrible.
Yes. I feared she'd be here. But we must leave her. I'm sorry, but there's nothing you can do for her now. She's become something else.
I turn my back on her, step away from the clearing, edging past a spirit sort of coming past me, and then go to light some of the coals on the forest floor near some of the kindling we gathered. The forest will burn.
Durban sort of looks at you strangely.
If only you were right. It's far too wet. This plan is impossible. These creatures are inevitable.
There must be something we can do. What about that creature you carry?
Salty Philip. Listen, he's got a few party tricks, but I don't think that he could handle, 300, 400, 500 ghouls.
Perhaps the town folk are right.
No, I fear they'll descend upon the town.
Well, we cannot go back there.
No. Perhaps we could warn them. They could fortify it.
Would not listen, not after what we did.
Whatever we do, it must be quick. I fear we have little time.
I suppose. Black Durban. There is only one option left.
What is that? You're looking at me like you think I've got some plan.
No. If only. Our only option is to run.
That's what I was thinking.
Let's go!
You both mount astride the horse and gallop at full pelt.
Yes.
To your farm.
Leaving the swine behind, back to the farm. I burst through the door. Abby! Come quick! She's still tied up on the bed?
She's still tied up, but she looks fatigued, and you can't see that same strange, hypnotized look that she had before that seems to have gone.
I go to her. Abby, I'm sorry, girl.
Father, what's happened?
Something terrible, something good, something bad. I can't explain. We must leave.
Listen, we really should be quick about that.
Pack your things.
Yes.
Durban runs out and starts to pack up his tent and everything to load his horse. I assume you do the same?
I have few possessions, but I've got Abby and a few trinkets. We mount the old crappy horse that I have and gallop away from town.
Yeah, you ride away from town, which is in a valley at the edge of the forest. You're riding for about an hour when you reach the top of a hill, and turning back you see the town of Godswood, which you've lived in since you were only 10 years old, completely abuzz with panic, with alarm. Buildings are catching alight, there are fires, and you can see shadows, hundreds, maybe even thousands of shadowed figures crawling in from the edge of the forest, climbing over the palisades and into the city, descending upon the town. You can hear the screams collectively from the city, but you can't make out distinct voices from this distance. They're all just sort of noise at this range. Noise and lights and shadows. Black Durban looks at you.
Maybe we should have just left the giant alone.
Yes, I suppose you're right.
The two of you share a moment of very macabre laughter.
And then I fall off the horse, bleeding terribly from this wound, falling into unconsciousness as I see Durban and my beautiful daughter, Abby, come to my aid.